Welcome to the Love Pod, where inspiration, vision, and real connection come alive. Wherever you are, you belong here.
Welcome back to the Love Pod, everyone. Today we have a very special friend joining us, Shua Mannah. And we first met Shua when we were living in Nelson, BC, through our dear friends, Matt and Paige. And I'll never forget that weekend. We were actually doing, do you guys remember, a Tony Robbins intensive event? And, we got to know each other on pretty deep levels fairly quickly. And I remember even during one of the breaks, Shua, we were sitting outside overlooking the lake. And I was sharing these pretty profound recent experiences that I had been processing. And you were just listening to me with such presence. And I felt safe, seen, heard. And, you were also listening with such a genuine sense of curiosity. And then you started asking me, where do you feel those emotions in your body? And I was just laughing because Nathaniel and I do that all the time. We bring awareness to certain aspects, through conscious observation and acceptance. And over time, we got to know each other better, through different meals and hangouts and nature walks and, sourdough baking. And we also shared a desire to explore life at its most meaningful and truthful layers. And then Nathaniel and I have also had the opportunity to work with you one on one. And, we're always so amazed by your ability to meet others right where they're at. And you distill complex ideas into simple, accessible guidance and offer clear, practical tools for aligning with matters most. And, we also shared similar perspectives and experiences during the height of the pandemic. And Shua has even traveled, to different places, including Mexico, I believe it was, and, having different conversations with people. And I think at one point you even started your own podcast show. And now here we are, a neuro-emotional guide, community builder, and host of the Awareness Games. You help humans navigate chaos, complexity, and the unknown in ways that lead to truth, peace, love, and personal power. And today we get to dive into all of that together. So it's such a pleasure to have you here. Welcome to the Love Pod.
Sounds like it's the
Thank
full
you.
show.
Yeah, I think you
We can just end
captured
it
it.
now.
That was it. That was my story. That's what I'm here for.
No, no, no. It's always just the beginning. Remember, guys?
You know what? I just want to echo everything Julie said, and also just to really expand on, you're probably the most profound listener that I have met on this earth walk so far, brother. You are truly a deep, deep, deep listener. So we really are excited to have you on the show.
Oh, thank you. But unfortunately, part of being on the show is talking. So we're going to do some talking and some listening. Is going to be a beautiful dialogue. I am reminded of the lunch that you guys invited myself and a friend to, where you made delicious soup and homemade sourdough bread, and it was just such a lively conversation, and I just felt like this immense sense of home. And then, of course, you guys talk about the concept of home on such a deep level as well. And so I responded to your embodiment of the values that you speak, you live, you share, you teach, you preach, you learn, and yeah, it's just always very energizing conversation. So it makes it easy to listen, to participate, and to contribute my own experience. And that's what we're here to do today. So let's jump into
Let's
it.
jump. Yeah, thank you for echoing all that.
Yeah.
Do you want to ask the first question?
Yeah, well, I think there's so much to you, Shua, and I know it comes a lot from what I love about you is a lot of it's from your own direct experience. So I'd love to maybe
Mm.
just invite you to share about your journey, your story, and why are you doing what you're doing?
Yeah, beautiful. Direct experience. I was thinking about that over the last few days. And, I've read a lot of books. I've listened to a lot of podcasts. I've taken a lot of courses and seminars and, done all these workshops and retreats and bit of a like a you could say a self-help slash healing obsession. And not in terms of necessarily thinking that I need to learn all of that, but it's more like reading those books and having those conversations. That is direct experience, but also the lived experience of how I show up as a human in the world in connection with other people, how I treat my body. um, these are the most embodied forms of experience, right? Because then you see how reality reflects back to you. So it's been experience, but it's also been experiments in terms of there isn't just one thing that I've done since, an awakening that I've said, oh yeah, that's it and nothing else. Because we're not here to just be one dimensional. It's multidimensional, and things continue to change and evolve. And I'm not fussed with trying to find one way to live. I'm fussed with helping a billion people find one way to live for them in that moment, and to create a basic understanding so that we can accept ourselves and be agents of change at the same time. So my experience, like you mentioned, a lot of change happened for me as in response to the pandemic. And it was this really interesting contrast, this juxtaposition of the world was experiencing a lot of reactivity, and I didn't really know, I didn't expect it. I didn't know that under the face of such an apparent threat, that it would lead to as much as divisiveness and polarization, and all of this social divide, and really an unfortunate, I would say, level of or caliber of conversation where it just turned into black and white and blame and shame and guilt. And there are all these things. And I just looked at this out there and I thought, wow, I thought that when it came down to it, these principles and these virtues and Jesus and Tony Robbins and Ram Dass, I just thought that that's what we would bring into the situation. And what I found was that fear is, it's just what's happening when those things aren't being embodied, right? So there was a lot of reactivity, and that's exactly the time that I really discovered meditation and psychedelics and therapy. And I just said, okay, let's sit down. I've tried everything. I've traveled the world. I've made lots of money. I had an incredible career, a very full social life, sometimes in contact with up to 60 people every week. It was fast paced. I was working out. I was eating healthy food, checkbox, 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 all the way down. And yet I felt like I was at war with life. And I felt like nothing really made sense. And I thought, wow, if I continue to feel like this for the rest of my life, I don't think that I'm going to feel like when's the satisfaction going to come, right? Is that later? Really? Is it later that I'm going to feel whole? How much money do I have to make? How many experiences do I have to have? And so it became easy for me from that place to be able to sit and actually not try to experience anything. And that's where a little bit of meditation came in, and I really returned to writing and focused on the ability to just share my thoughts and organize ideas. And so there was this outer world that was in, the peak, the height of chaos as far as I'd experienced it in my life. Granted, it's all relative. And then inside, I started to feel like this emanation, this peace, this ease, this stillness. And as a result of that, all of this wisdom started coming through as I looked out at the world and then sat, breathe, reflect, cry, walk, and then write it down. And I noticed that there was shifts going on within me that had nothing to do with changes in the outside world. And that for me was a real awakening. The fact that I didn't need to be in control. I didn't need to change people's opinions. I didn't need to reject anybody. I didn't need to argue. I didn't need to make more money. There was just, hold on. Maybe it's okay. And from that state of being okay, right? And ease and breath, what could I do then? And so I started discovering thoughts are really interesting. And then emotions are really interesting because we can have these really big experiences, and all these stories come out of those experiences, and meanings and beliefs and us versus them and all of this stuff. And I thought there's got to be a place within myself that I can sit where I'm aware of thoughts, I'm aware of emotions, I'm aware of breath, I'm aware of the outer world, and I'm listening and I'm with it and I'm part of it, and I'm not moved around in that turbulence. And so I began to get more and more excited about the idea of what would life look like if I were to detach from this identity, right? Like what would it look like? I mean, have you ever had the dream? And I'm sure some of the people listening to this have had the dream, okay, I'm going to sell everything. I'm going to say goodbye. I'm going to pack up my life. I'm going to hit the road and I'm just going to see what happens next. And that was a bit of a dream that I had had for a while. And I thought, well, if I did that from a place of feeling inspired and passionate, which was really my goal at that time, then I'm just going to attract people who are inspired and passionate, and we're going to collaborate, and I'll be able to create a new life, right? Something that felt more resonant um, and embodied from that path, from that state, from taking that strategy. So in 30 days, I basically I went for a walk on Nose Hill in Calgary, where I was living at the time, and I kind of had my little, meditation at the top of the hill, and the clearest message that I could grasp at that time was, let's go, let's do it, let's send it. What's there to lose? And I felt such an inner calm and an inner peace, and so much energy came through my body at the idea of this that I said, okay, I'm going to embody all of this wisdom that I've been writing while I was just sitting in my condo. And I said, I'm going to live it. I'm going to live from that place. And whatever happens, I'm sure I'll be happy that it worked out, wherever that takes me, whatever that looks like. So not an attachment to a specific outcome, right? But an attachment simply to peace, to showing up in search of truth, in an embodiment of passion. And so I did. I spent 30 days. I liquidated my life. I gave my stuff away. I broke up with my partner at the time, who I'm with. We live together. Spoiler alert. And I said goodbye to friends and family, and packed a few things into a van that was donated, lent to me by Matt and Paige. And all of these things started fitting into place. The dealership just said, yeah, we'll just take back the car. Don't worry about that damage from when that guy hit you. We'll take care of it. And I need to get rid of my leased condo, and my neighbor, he was out on his balcony like the next day after I made this decision. And he said, hey, if you ever need to get out of your lease, I've got my mom. She'd love to come live in this building with us. And I said, done, take it. Okay, next. And I realized this might be kind of easy. And actually, I got pretty arrogant about it, because I thought, I've already cracked it. I've cracked the code. Life's going to be amazing from here on out. It's a flow state, baby, and I'm in. And I'll tell you what, that flow state lasted until I crossed the border, which was on the last day that I was allowed to leave Canada because of certain status that I was imbued with by the government. And I was sitting in a hotel in Montana in November 7th, right? So it's cold. And I'm thinking, what have I done? What have I done? Because I don't have a plan. I'm like, I'll go get some groceries. I'll start there, I don't have a lot of money. I don't have a network in Montana. What am I going to do? And I'm waiting for the van to get through customs. And I thought, okay, well, this is how it's going to be for a while, where there's no plan, there's no outer security. I'm going to need some tools in order to ground in, right? And I didn't have breath work. I didn't have emotional awareness, training. I didn't have a formal meditation practice. I was just there, and I thought, I'm going to go through this. And so the van arrived. I ended up staying with some college kids, and they're sleeping on a couch in Montana, and they just let me stay until the van showed up, which I was supposed to be there for 2 days, turned into 3 weeks, and just bonded with them. And we had beautiful conversations, and I told them my plans, and we listened to music, and we went for walks and cold dips. And I thought, wow, okay, the flow state's still happening. There's just moments of uncertainty. There's moments of this fear. There's moments of not being able to see clearly. And look what happens after that. Okay, it's just going to ebb and flow. I'm down for this trip. This led to a 9-month adventure. I went and found my 8th grade English teacher from Colorado. She still lived a couple blocks from the junior high that I went to. She was 84. She'd been retired for 20 years. And I recorded a podcast conversation with her, just asking her, what do you live for? Because she was so inspirational to me. And there was a way in which she showed up that, like you guys spoke about presence, about listening, about awareness, she was those things, but I didn't have that language yet. I was just gravitating towards her presence. 20 years later, she was still a beacon of hope for me. So I went and found her, and I said, what do you live by? What do you know? What's your secret? And she was a very well-revered teacher, and politicians would ask her for advice. And she said, I show up, I listen, and I do my best to alleviate the suffering of other people.
Mm.
That's it. You know? That's, I wanted like a trick, you know, like I wanted some wisdom, some secret hidden knowledge that would be the key. And I realized pretty quickly through a series of these conversations, and I went to California and I recorded podcast conversations on the beach with strangers asking what they're passionate about. And through that, I met celebrities and famous people and homeless people and gangsters and hustlers and shamans and just this wide spectrum of people. What are you passionate about? What do you know? What do you believe in? Who are you? Right? All these kind of big questions. And slowly I started realizing that this wasn't going to be a game of like finding that one person with the answers. This was going to be, it's all there, right? I mean, we're not really saying things that are secret. There's no secret. It's the willingness to be curious and then the capacity to listen. And then the answers are there. And the people that have the answers sometimes show up, or we find them within ourselves or within a book, or it doesn't matter, or looking into the eyes of our baby, right? Like it's nonverbal wisdom as well. And so this is where you start to get to this place where it's about listening, it's about presence, it's about just being with what is, rather than trying to change or fix or solve. And that created that war that I was talking about that I felt like I was in with life. That turned into what felt more like play really quickly. And I started realizing that when we feel our best, we're playing, it's playful. If we're taking this really seriously, we're a little bit lost in it. We're making it material, right? We're going to get stuck in that. And it's okay to get stuck, but can we also play with being stuck? Like it's okay to be sad. It's okay to experience grief and loneliness and jealousy and fear and all of these things. That's okay. What we do with that turns out to be the biggest gift.
Mm.
So I ended up coming home from this trip, right? And I didn't want to, guys. I wanted to travel and become a celebrity myself and have all of these followers and unleash, 60 episodes of a podcast of all of these conversations. But as soon as I got home, I realized there was this performative layer to everything that I'd been doing, that I was trying to prove something and I was seeking truth because I want to be right so that I could prove that they were wrong about something out there. And so I actually, I realized it wasn't going to be my path to necessarily go straight to trying to, get rich and famous off of spiritual wisdom. That just didn't, that I looked at it and said, if I'm just another guy out here saying nice things, trying to get paid for it, then I'm missing out on the challenge, quite frankly, because I'm very good at speaking. I'm very good at writing, and I could write things and I could say things, and I have. But if that's all I become, then I've just made like a horizontal shift from one role, one identity to another. And that's fine because it's just one ego trip to another ego trip and an ego trip in between. And the ego trip is certainly a spiritual trip. So when you start peeling back these layers of performance and duality and right and wrong, it's actually led to a very profound period of not so much speaking or preaching or talking or writing, but more just embodiment, just quiet embodiment. So to get an invitation to be on a podcast to talk about my experience, I thought, okay, well, I'm gonna just list out all of the lessons, all of the wisdom I've learned, and now I can finally. And it's like, no, guys. I mean, it's not collective wisdom insofar it's my experience and my ability to sit with my experience and allow myself to connect with that wisdom. That's more interesting and that's more collaborative and contributive to a listening audience, to a community, is them accessing their wisdom, right? Which is a collective wisdom, but it's through their own channel rather than necessarily relying on what I think I've learned or what you think you've learned. So now these days I'm living in Nelson. I put down roots and I'm working in the field of disability support, helping people, again, that full spectrum of the human experience from homeless to famous. And now I'm working with people with different ranges of disabilities. And I walk a lot and I play a lot of piano. and I breathe and I meditate and I embody the things that are now obvious to me. And whatever comes of that, I'm still down for the ride. I still choose the trip. And it doesn't mean that everything's easy. It doesn't mean that all your problems go away when you have these awakenings or these epiphanies. But there is a sense that the challenges are energizing, right? Like anger can be energizing if we use it to that effect. Fear can be energizing if we use it to that effect. So now I'm playing with, some pretty mundane things. I'm not living in a van. I'm not dressed as a hippie. I'm just a guy. And and yet all of my past experiences and wisdom, I feel like I very lightly bring that with me through life so that it can be a toolbox and resources, but not necessarily this strong identity. So I'm happy to share my story. I find it very profound, very interesting, very nostalgic to think back on. But I also spend most of my time showing up to today with as much presence and wholeness as I can cultivate.
Damn, you are a good speaker.
It's beautiful, man. Yeah.
I kind of already know your story, but I still have goosebumps all over my body and feel inspired as ever. And I know anyone who is listening to this probably feels the same or will feel the same. You touched upon so many golden nuggets, and like what I love about all of this is your direct experience. And like you said, there's no one secret or one answer out there that's going to solve anyone's problem. If anything, we can, because this is not a linear life and we are multidimensional beings, like our lived experiences and our awakenings can influence others. And like, it just makes me think about like I think everyone's deeper life purpose is to awaken on one level or another. And through our own awakening and our experiences, we help others to awaken around us. Right. And so I love that, during a time where probably it was more challenging than ever, and where fear was higher than it has been in millennia, probably, like you had the inspiration to go within and question things, and we did as well. And it takes true courage, especially when not everyone, but like the majority of the people are doing this one thing, and you're like, wait a minute, why? Like, why are they doing that? And should I have the power to choose differently? And to go within and really like start asking questions and being curious. It's like answers will come. If you ask the questions, the answers will come. But the curiosity needs to be there, as well as the intention of wanting to know. And like you said, the answers may not come how you think, but if you ask, the universe will respond. And I found it so beautiful. One of the things that you said, I think that touched me the most, is like, regardless of the state of the outer world, you knew that your inner state was untouched. And because you were aware of that what was going on in here had nothing to do with out there, and vice versa. And that, I can just imagine like how much freedom that would give someone if they were to experience that directly.
Yes. Well, I agree, and I understand that it looked like courage, um, and it can be a choice, and I would encourage people to make the choice to explore what awareness does for them, instead of trying to react, fix, control, change, prove. But the reality is, it didn't feel like courage to me. It felt like, the story that they always tell of, there's a train station and a guy falls on the tracks, and this guy jumps down and he picks him up off the tracks just in time before the train comes through. And then, wow, he's a hero. And the newscast shows up, and he says, wow, you must have felt like you must have had to be so courageous. Like, what bravery. And the answer is usually the same for the guy that jumped down on the tracks. No, it's just what I did. It's just what made sense in the moment. You don't think through it. You don't need to cultivate that. You say, okay, time to go. I can do this and I will, right? And so there was a certain freedom because I didn't feel like I had to leave, but I could leave, right? And so I did choose to leave. I did, feel that fear and then take that jump and let go of really good security, really good safety. But I also knew that I had already been through that loop of feeling like I didn't have stability and security, and then building up a career and a community and playing in bands and traveling the world. And I thought, well, I'm actually no happier now than I was at the beginning when I was like in the produce department of Safeway, right? Or working at a startup or whatever. So the context gets to change. It gets to change. And I'm going to choose to honor my inner experience, right? Which doesn't mean that I have it all figured out within myself. It's not this impenetrable core. The outer world still impacts me, right? Like something happens and it activates a feeling. But the difference is I honor that feeling as real, and I allow it, I just sit with it instead of making what's out there responsible for my feeling, because it's just more energy, it's more activation of awareness coming online, and it requires some breath, and it requires some simple decisions to choose to feel what you feel and to be with it, right? Like, um, so courage, yes, very valuable. If you can choose courage, if you can find any amount of courage that you can draw in yourself and say, I'm choosing this and it's scary and I'm still going to go for it, absolutely, that will reward you every single time. There's other times, though, where I look back at that same decision from a nervous system perspective. So I got a whole bunch of training while I was on the road and over the last 4 years. So I'm a certified neuro-emotional coach. And what I realized is that the nervous system has these basic reactions to fear: fight, flight, freeze, appease, right? These are the four. Most people know fight, flight. Some people understand freeze. Appease is less well known. We can chat about that more later if we want. But what I realized is that I was also, as much as it was a spiritual choice and it was inspired and I got this message from the top of the hill, it also was flight. It also was me saying, screw this, I'm out, right? I'm out of here and I won't be home for dinner, you know? and and I've played with that in terms of, yes, I had a beautiful adventure and it's a spiritual trip and it's an ego trip and it transcends that duality of the two. So it was both a flight from and saying, I choose something else. I'm not doing this, which was a big no, right? And I also, and I think this is the key, I also choose this, which is a big yes. And so I wasn't just running from something, I was running towards something. And I did anchor that in extremely clearly before all of those things started fitting into place, right? And I'll tell you what those were because they were really simple at that time: gratitude, curiosity, and acceptance. Those were the three that got me across the border. And as soon as I got across the border, I realized that I was going to have to figure out what I'm actually passionate about, right? And so gratitude, curiosity, acceptance, and passion, that was enough. I didn't have breath work. I didn't have any sort of understanding of what was happening during psychedelic experiences. I didn't bring God with me on that trip, right? It was, I'm going to show up and I'm going to have as much gratitude in my heart, curiosity in my mind, passion in my gut, right? And acceptance for the way that things are on the outside and for how people choose to show up. And that was enough clarity, right? Like it didn't have to be more complicated than that, because that's not me saying I've got this list of 10 things that I want to accomplish. I've got 4 things and I'm going to embody them every moment and then see what happens. So courage was something I think that is often projected onto somebody and says, wow, they must be very courageous. But by the time you're embodying your truth, it's obvious. It's obviousness, right? It's what else is there to do? How else could it have been? And that is, I think, more close to a layer of peace that transcends courage in a way, because I'm not afraid of fear.
Mhm.
Yeah.
There is an inviolate part of ourselves, and I think it speaks to the root word of courage. I had an Irish woman, medicine woman, tell me this, and in French it's similar too, because cœur is in courage, right? It's so that root word is heart. And she said in Irish, the word for courage means the rage of the heart. And so when I talk about this inviolate part of ourself, like you can call it the soulful self, you can call it a higher self. There's a calling, I think, in all of us, but there has to be a willingness to listen to that and to actually take a leap. And what I really find profound about you, Shua, is you have this clarity about you, and knowing, like you make conscious decisions, like you have this discernment. I'm saying no to this, and Julie and I had this similar experience. I'm saying yes to this. We had this experience both in leaving Canada around the same time you did. We went to Costa Rica and Mexico. We didn't have a van, and then we also made that decision to go out west. In which in that going leaping into that unknown, I credit a lot with my own spiritual maturity in this life, because it's going into the unknown and trusting another quality of life, that you're running towards something that you might not know what it is, but you have this sense of that calling. And what I love about you is you recognize that there is this ego game playing, and you're choosing to go deeper than that, because I feel like what's really true about us is actually hidden within the ego drive. And so to not say, okay, I have these gifts and I can just become this world-class teacher and stuff, but to be honest with yourself to that level, that you can actually see that you would be making a game of maybe spiritual bypass, or and not really living in the truth. Like everything you said to me and I think I comprehend it, because truth has been my North Star too.
Hmm.
And I feel like you have a lot to say about truth and how it relates to some of the other bigger qualities of existence and life. Am I seeing you clearly?
Yeah, well, we've had a lot of conversations about truth, Nathaniel, and I find the truest conversations about truth tend to be pretty short. But it's a lot, but it's a lot more fun to open that up and play with what's in there, without necessarily being attached, because otherwise we get into like persuasion and convincing,
Hmm.
and then it's just your thoughts versus somebody else's thoughts, and which one's a lie and which one's the truth. And then you're right back in a duality there, where somebody has to be wrong for us to be right.
Hmm.
And if that's the case, then we're only chasing a subjective or personal truth, which is fine because you can still make those yeses and nos. But that capital T truth, it's a lot closer to a feeling or to a presence, than to a statement that I can say is that's true, right?
Yeah, yeah, and I just want to just to reframe this too. Those four qualities that you mentioned, being, and that's the kind of clarity that I'm talking about. Knowing that curiosity, that knowing that passion, knowing that
Gratitude.
gratitude, and then acceptance, and embodying like that. To me, when I'm talking about the truth, it's not so much about pointing at something like that's the truth. It's really that embodiment quality that you have, and that requires a level of self-honesty and inner clarity of the awareness that you're bringing to the game, right?
Mm. Yeah, I mean, I can only speak my personal truth, right? And I think that's the gift, is when we look at our personal truth and we find that there's a them in it, right? Or a right, wrong, hold that lightly. Hold that lightly. Like when you start thinking about what's the most universal truth. So if you take the elevator up the building to the top of the skyscraper of truth, or the top of the mountain, um, and you're looking for what's the most universal truth that we can convey in words, it might be something like, so, it might be this, it might be here we are, right? And something simple like this, because any sort of complexity comes from standing at just a different point in subjectivity where we're saying, okay, well, this is just my personal experience. But when you're saying we, when it's inclusive of everybody, what's true for every being, for everybody on the planet? Well, we are. And then from that feeling of collectivism, you say, there's a feeling in here, and it feels like love. It feels like love, because now I'm thinking about, I'm bringing my consciousness to a place where there is no us and them, there is no right and wrong. Here we are. And so what I have found, and this might be a bit of a spiritual spoiler alert here, but if you're seeking truth, there is no way that you're going to come to the end of that journey unless you encounter love.
Mhm.
And love is kind of the transcendence of abstraction, of thought, of words. It's the feeling. It's the best feeling. It's the most healing feeling. It's why we put it at the center of all of our religions and spirituality and personal practices, and our highest quality relationships and businesses. It's because when we're thinking from that layer, right, There's no us versus them. There's no scarcity. There's no lack. There's no imperfection. There's actually no trip. Ah, here we are, right?
Yeah.
And then you go back into it. But for me, I found that, and you talked about bypassing. I have through passed. I have not gone around. I go through. So I have sat with truth and that I'm right and they're wrong. And I sit with that and I sit with that and I breathe and I reflect and I look for the dualities and the polarities and then I transcend them, which I keep going like this with my hand because you're finding a place where both this is right and this is right. And where's the point in awareness where you can stand and see them both as true?
Mhm.
So this is the both and tool to find truth,
Mhm.
where there's no either or.
Mhm.
It's this is true and this is true and this is true and this is true and this. Oh wow,
Yes.
truth. Ah,
Yeah.
and from that, my mind goes quiet because now I'm not searching for thoughts to make me feel better, which is a lot of what truth seeking is about. Is having some sort of a framework or a belief or a mantra or an identity, a fixity of self, right? So that we can create this illusion of stability in our minds so that our hearts can feel okay.
Mhm. Mhm.
Bring it down. Realize right away that whatever truth you're holding on to, whatever thoughts, whatever complexity, this is a subjective experience. And if we can rise through breath, through connecting with our emotional self to a place where we're feeling a different frequency or a different state, then those same questions that we were asking and those same challenges that we were experiencing suddenly either don't exist, right? Which sounds like a bypass, but what often happens more is that through that elevator trip up, through that mountain climb up to that consciousness, we're just gaining and integrating the wisdom that makes that lower problem no longer a challenge. We transcend it, right?
Mhm.
So this is that's the end of truth for me. That's the end of
Mhm.
truth. Because after that, what I'm doing is I'm listening to your truth.
Mhm.
Because your truth is part of truth. And
Yeah.
that's what creates healing. So if I argue with you, I'm creating that division. If I listen to you, I'm creating that connection. And we're creating a more collaborative, collective truth. So I've done as much as I can to listen, to read, to study, to breathe, to not react to what people are saying as right and wrong or good or bad. Ah, an opinion, an idea. And you can sit with it and you can integrate it. But I'm no longer wrestling with this search for just an idea or a quote or something that if I just say it, everything's clear. Because I
Mhm.
would rather have that be a whole body experience. I want a clear mind, but I want to breathe deeply. I want an open heart, right? I want my body to heal itself. And when I'm in that state of peace, so this is where I lead to peace because you really need to breathe. You got to breathe, Nathaniel. If we're not breathing, we're dying.
Yeah.
We're dying. Death is right around the corner. You last a few minutes without
Mhm.
breathing. And it's the most regulating thing that we can do for our nervous system, and it's free.
Mhm.
It's free. There's an abundance of breath. And if you're activated, you're just breathing more. So you have even more breath. Amazing. So when I breathe, I feel my body relax. I feel my thoughts start to clear. The energy starts to open in my heart. And just, teaching people or training people or sitting with people as they go through this experience, they become the source of their own wisdom, right?
Mhm.
They understand their own connection to the infinite. So I focused less on gratitude, curiosity, acceptance, and peace, but they've almost been upgraded to more foundational words of love, truth, peace, power. It's the same four things, right, if you think
Mhm.
about it. But they're just like the more universal versions of them because some people are like, well, I'm not curious because I know. Okay, so you're interested in truth? Yeah. Okay, let's go with truth, right? And and so I tune into those four intentions every day, and what I find is that they're almost like swirling. Those four, they swirl together because love kind of becomes truth, kind of becomes love, right? And when you feel love, that's energy, which is power.
Mhm.
And when you see, and from a place of awareness, embodied awareness of love and of fear and of grief and of loss and of material and spiritual, that awareness, what grounded in is peace. And so it turns out that for all of the spiritual complexity that's out there, when you look at all of the religions and all of the teachings and all of the ideas and all of the books and the workshops and the coaching, they're actually, and I read more books just to find out if somebody can bring up something new, but they're really just fitting into one of these four categories. And I don't do that to be reductionistic because I love the infinity and the complexity of everybody's personal experiences and what they're bringing into it. But when you're reading all of these books, when you're trying to improve your life, when you're showing up and you're hearing elders give their perspectives on things, I just look at it, are they anchored in truth? Are they anchored in love? Are they seeking truth? Are they open to love? Are they speaking from love? Do they have a sense of power? Are they giving their power away in this opinion, right? Is there peace? Is there a connection to breath before they speak? And if I see that these things are true, I tend to find that they're thriving. They're having an extraordinary time. They're making the difference in the world that it just needs to be made. They're not trying to prove, they're not trying to fix. And so I look at this as a very simple basket of values or ideals or even beliefs where I just anchor into those simple concepts. And all of the other complexities of life filter into those. And at the middle of those four concepts, or the eye of the storm, it's infinity, right? Like we're living in an infinite reality, Nathaniel, right? And if we're living in an infinite, if we're living in an, if say we're living in an infinite reality, then there's multiple ways to do things, right? So we don't need to get lost in dualities of right, wrong, good, bad as objective truth because they're not. So then we're free to be more curious, to be more open, to be more connected with other people. And because you're connected to the infinite, because you're open to the infinite, because you're emanating and embodying the power of the infinite, because you're in love with the infinite. It's, for me, that's become enough. And I've written millions of words, right? Like I love to talk. I'm all here for the intricacies and complexities. But if you as a listener or you as a human want to simplify the mental chatter, right? If you want to feel your body heal, if you want an amplification of love within your relationships or abundance in whatever way and success, what that looks like, it's going to be rooted in feeling whole, right? It's going to be real, and whole and infinite and one are all very related terms. So I've just found the simpler my mental frameworks can be, the more I'm able to just show up and be, because I'm not busy running everything through a million layers, trying to look for granules of truth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So much beauty and depth there, man. And I can relate to you in so many ways. And for me, I feel like there's actually oftentimes, especially when I'm doing podcasts, listening to others, there is no thought. I'm simply listening. And that's really where the
Yes.
peace comes in. And I'd like to give you a high five for those four. And I feel like I feel like the fifth element you talk about being at the center of that and the infinite. I feel like this is what my other favorite Shua, being Yeshua, you mentioned Jesus, how he talks in the letters is that when we come to a stillness of thought, there's actually a spiritual power that begins to rise in and through our beingness. And I feel like from that place, when we can express from an embodied place of that wholeness, then we're in true co-creation with divine consciousness itself, or however we want to call it. And we're being that, what you so, lovingly said, we're being that active agent of loving change and expression in the world, which the world does need, because there is so many emotional entanglements. We can call them shadows, we can call them, wounds or traumas in the world, that in shining this light of wholeness, it actually allows that embrace to occur, because we're all interconnected as the land that we are. Like, this body is real. I'm not of the mind. I've literally sat across from the table with some proponents of, I think, misunderstood a Course in Miracles, which literally have looked at me and said, "You're not real. You're an illusion. I'm the only one who's real." And I feel like that's such a dangerous spiritual belief to have, right? That everything is the Maya, that everything is the illusion, that there isn't a reality to this divine expression that does create form, that does create the body of Mother Earth, that does create our interwoven relationships, and all the beautiful complexity that can be in through human and all the expression of life and beyond through the cosmos. Like, there is a reality to this. And I believe, like, the more I come to it, that evolution is actually a conscious co-creative endeavor that we're actively choosing, whether we know it or not, through our thoughts, through our feelings, through our embodied state, whether whole or, maligned to the wholeness of that truth. But you have an extraordinary clarity to you, Shua, and it's so valuable. So the fact that now you're working with people with who have disabilities, you're there in community, and you're just being really you and not trying to be something else. I feel like, someone told me once, I was at a Vipassana. It was the second time I went, and there was this really wonderful young Russian man who brought his whole Russian community to do the first ever Russian Vipassana. And I happened to be volunteering in the kitchen. I was voluntold, or asked, I should say, to be the kitchen manager, and I had all this thing, and I would sit in the meditation halls and listen to all the doctrines in that were translated into Russian, and I would just sit
Hmm.
there and listen to them and just focus on, one of the forms of meditation that Buddha taught was simply to be aware of the sensations all through the body and until the body becomes clear. And that young man, he said something really profound to me that stuck to me for years. He said, "Do you know how much of a gift it is to have an enlightened being in a community?" And he referred to Buddha, he referred to Christ, he referred, to Muhammad, all these beings who have, and I think, what you said, it's so simple. When more of us are just embodying that state of wholeness and recognizing the simplicity of it all, like truth and peace and power and love are this just it is what is, and we can just go and actually listen and be that beacon for people. It's so valuable. It's
Hmm.
so important, man. So I
Hmm.
thank you for being that, and for whatever qualities you embody to leap and to become a clearer conduit or connection to that true self that you are. I truly value and appreciate it. It's allowed us to have very deep conversations, to reflect these deepening things. And I know just from your heart that it's such a valuable thing in your community. So I really
Hmm.
want to thank you for that. And maybe thank you is not the right term, but just express my deep gratitude for you.
Hmm. Oh, thank you, Nathaniel. Appreciate that. Yeah, I think, listening is sometimes underrated for sure, and I I sometimes underrate it myself, right? Because I've got something to say, right? Um, and usually the most regulated nervous system in the room is the one that's listening the closest, right? I mean, and perceiving it as clearly as possible. Um, so with clients, I tend to focus on the nervous system as the access point to that listening because we can just listen to our own bodies, right? So that's where the Vipassana comes in as well, as we're being aware of the sensation in our bodies, and then we're able to expand that out and be aware of the environment that we're in. And then you can be aware of the socio-political dynamics. Like we don't have to put our head in the sand, but the ability to choose where we want to focus our attention is powerful. And then also the ability to soften that focus and just allow everything to be as it is and perceive reality from the place in space and time where we find ourselves. It's a gift, right? Like,
Mm,
due to, and when I say it's a gift, I mean it's a gift for me to receive experiencing reality, right? Like
yeah.
when I first experienced psychedelics, very quickly I realized that it's usually my desires and my fears and my judgments that are getting in the way of me being able to listen to what the other person wants, needs, is afraid of themselves, their whole being. And when I was able to let go of needing something from them and trying to get something from them, right? You can think about this in relationships or in business. Like I was a commercial real estate agent, so you're showing up to a client. I have an agenda. I'm trying to get something out of this meeting, right? They're trying to get something out of me, and you realize that it creates, unless it's very artfully navigated, it creates a lot of my story versus your story, and we're not actually necessarily connecting. When, as a service provider or a coach, or as a friend or a lover, when I can show up and simply just what I started calling attend to the gift, attend to the gift of who they are as they are in this moment with the capacity that I have to listen. That's enough, right? And that's perhaps a muscle that's built and strengthened over time. But everybody has a gift. Everybody's got this immense amount of love and joy and inspiration within them. And if we're listening for it, right? If we're listening to them just as they are, we'll see it. It'll just jump out at us. And I think that you do a great job of like you're so skilled at reflecting back to people the gifts that you see in them. And your ability to do that is a gift that you give back because you're seeing the gift in others. So it just creates this upward momentum for us to see each other, for us to know each other, for us to trust each other, for collaboration to be possible. And it feels more like play when we feel like we're in connection with other people.
Speaking of play, I guess we just entered the
Yeah.
room.
Who's here?
You're speaking of play.
Hey,
We wanted to sing a song.
Luciana.
Oh.
I was
Well, let's
thinking
do
of like,
it.
I'm like, oh shucks, I got to leave the conversation early. If I had one last question, it would be this,
Okay.
and that was, we ask our guests to send in a photo with their application, and yours made us smile because you're the only guest who ever sent in a childhood photo, and I love it. We both love it. And even the episode of the episode name of this is playing with the profound. And I love that. I'd love you to go deeper into like why you chose that name and why play is so important, especially I feel like in our adult years, like we simply forget when we're little, we are just constantly playing all the time and like nothing else matters. Like we make everything fun because that's the way we look at life. And she is such a beautiful, reflection of that. And she reminds us to not take life so seriously. And so
Yeah.
before you go into that, do you want to sing the song? This is what you love to play all the time. Let's sing it. Let's play hide and let's play hide and I'll
Hike
you'll
out
let's play hide and
seek.
Hey, let's play hide and seek.
Wow.
Oh,
she's a little camera shy.
oh my gosh, that's beautiful. Thank
But then
you.
after we do that, she'll
Hide and
always run
seek.
to the curtain windows and hide
Yeah,
behind the
she
curtain.
loves hiding behind the curtains, man. We both hide back there, and she's
Oh.
like, shh, 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 maybe Mama will come.
No,
That's
somebody
beautiful.
will not be available, and we'll just be hiding behind there, and she'll go like, shh, shh, and I'll be like, who's gonna come find us? Papa, find us, and then but you'll be like downstairs or something. She just always wants someone to play with her,
Yeah.
right? But I love that you named the episode that, and that you're all about that, and that's also I'm sure what the awareness games like is founded on as well.
I think this is a perfect caveat for the awareness games, Shua.
I'm gonna take her to eat. I just
Okay.
wanted
I
to
love
say
it.
hi, and thank you so much, Shua. I hope you guys have a good continuation.
Yeah, I'm
Thank
we
you,
will.
Julia. Enjoy lunch.
Bye bye. Can you blow a back
Ciao, ciao.
Oh, Papa's friend. Little back choke. You blow a little back
Oh,
choke.
gotcha.
She just
Bye. Bye.
Okay, big
Oh.
lots of love
Oh,
to you, Shua.
thank you. Good to see you. Hide and seek. I mean, when you get down to it, in Hinduism, they in Vedic traditions they refer to it as the cosmic play, right? And it's like either a theatrical kind of play or it's more of like a game type of play. And at some point, it's both, right? So we transcend that polarity and we say, okay, it's just play, 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 play. And hide and seek is one of the best metaphors for kind of the whole trip of existence because you go into some version of separation as an identity, as a self, right? And then you're seeking and we're looking and we're like, what are we even looking for? Who's what am I who am I am I hiding? Are you
I found you.
oh, easy, right? And so that's where the awareness games comes from. So I started a couple years ago. I was reading all these books, taking all these courses, and realizing, wow, I've spent tens of thousands of dollars on all of these courses and books and retreats, and it was a real full-time commitment in a sense. But what do I do with all this information that I'm learning that's potent, that's powerful, that could help other people? And I thought, Wow, what a tragedy if the only way that people are going to get this information is through feeling crappy enough that they spend their life savings on a course they don't need to learn things they already knew, and they're going to go through it like this is their healing trip to become okay, just to get relief. And I thought, oh no, I don't think that that's necessary. I mean, I'm all for coaching. I've definitely benefited from coaching. I'm all for self-help and personal growth and go on the retreats, do that. But also, is there room? Are we open to bringing more play into that experience, right? When you spend enough time on retreats and reading these books, you realize there's a deep sense of lack or inadequacy or incompleteness that's driving those decisions to go sit in a therapy chair.
Mm.
And for example, a therapy chair, it's not very fun. People aren't generally having a lot of fun there. And therapists tell me that. I mean, I enjoyed therapy, but that's my trip, right? It's like I'm like, let's go. And I do circles around the frameworks that, psychologists brought to me and showed them all the ways in which that was not complete view of reality. And I just did that for fun. It's kind of it wasn't fair. I'm not sure it was therapeutic for anybody, but I get to the place where you're thinking, is there a way for me to explore who I am, connect with myself, but also connect with others and make it a playful, socially bonding experience rather than an individuating, I feel embarrassed about who I am, so I'm going to go sit in this chair in like time out, right? And talk about all the terrible things that have happened. Talk about the terrible things that have happened. Talk about the joyful things that have talk. But can we talk as a group? We all, in traveling around and sleeping on couches and conversation after conversation, people are searching for community, and you guys are creating one. So I commend that. And also, communities already exist, and it's usually us leaving community to go realize that what we wanted was connection with people anyways. So what I did was I created the awareness games, which I take all of these little tidbits of wisdom from all of these books, Maps of Consciousness, Louise Hay, Eckhart Tolle, Ram Dass, you name it, Christ letters, right? And you read through all of these things and you find these little, oh, like this is potent. And then my mind automatically goes to creating an experience, right? A playful experience in a social setting with multiple people where they get the embodied effect of that wisdom, right? So now it's not me telling you what you should believe. It's saying, hey, do you want to play a game? And then we play the game and they say, wow, I feel so much better after having done that, even though I did not want to do it at all. Okay, well, that sounds like what you might say to your therapist, but now you actually just spent an hour playing, which, by the way, is one of the most healing states to be for your nervous system. And it's also one of the fastest ways that you can learn new information is through play. And why did I choose a photo from my childhood? And it's me, if people haven't seen it, it's me going something like this with a baseball bat, right? And a big old cap. And every time I look at that photo, I'm like, where did that little child go? Where did he go? And it's this game of hide and seek that we can play with our inner child. And for me, I just find, having spent time around children and reflecting on my own childhood, there's a purity, there's an essence there. There's something that just is so expansive in the presence of children because they're curious, they're alive, they're playful, they're learning, they're willing to experiment. They don't have these rigid senses of right and wrong and good and bad. They're malleable, right? And so I just look for opportunities in all of the challenges that I experience and all of the opportunities that I have to make it a little bit more playful and a little bit less serious, just a little bit, not a bypassy level of, oh, well, let's play with your trauma from when you were 16. It's, hey, let's act it out. Show me who else was involved. And they think, well, it's just me and my dad, right? And that was the trauma. But through play, we find out that they actually had like 15 feelings in their back trunk, right? That are all coming along for the ride. And when we name those and understand all of this emotional energy that they were bringing to this experience, then they feel a sense of wholeness because they can see the full spectrum of their human existence played out in a game. But also there's this immense level of forgiveness that happens because then we can do it to the other side, right? To dad and say, what was he bringing? And then this awareness, this collective awareness expands and we're laughing the whole time because it's like stand-up comedy. It's like improv, right? Is people showing up and saying, I'm willing to play with the challenges that I'm having.
Mm.
And there is a lot of energy that comes from that. So it's been a gift.
Hmm.
I've done it 10 times in Nelson, hosted these events. And it's somewhere, between 4 and 25 people show up.
Amazing.
And I got this box of props and this big stack of all of these cards that I've made. Oh my goodness. And we just pull some and whatever happens, happens. And it's just a lot of fun. Yeah.
I think it's extraordinary, man. And to me, I see so many elements that I feel like are combined. Like I see, like family constellations and like deep
100%. Yeah.
deep inquiry of like enlightenment intensives and all these beautiful things that you know I think it's by no coincidence or chance that Christ told people only but through the eyes of a small child will you re-enter into the state of heaven. And we talk a lot about on the show how children truly are our greatest teachers, but they're also our greatest leaders. And I think this is something
Mhm.
that's unrecognized when we see that little Shua was holding the baseball bat. He had all the wisdom in him of of ineffable infinite experience that already you talked about that infinite part. Have you grown and embodied that and matured that? Yes, but so many of us lose that sense of connection to that small playful self and start embodying beliefs that remove us and separate us and go deeper into the game of hide and seek, as you said. I think it's so beautiful, and so beautiful. I had no idea Julie was. I didn't even
I
know she's
love
been
it.
singing that song with her because she
Yeah.
sings a lot of songs now, Luciana, and
Beautiful.
I think it's great. I look forward to seeing how the awareness games develops. And I'd love, what? We have a school community, Shua. I would love to invite you to come and actually, I don't know if you've done them virtually at all, but if you would like to try and have an experiment and come and do a virtual awareness games inside of our school community, that would be really cool, I think, to add an element. But anyways, it's the invitations on the
Yeah,
table.
let's do it. That sounds
Uh,
great.
yeah,
Absolutely.
I
Yeah.
think it's so important that we return to like I will admit for a long time, especially after I found the Christ letters, after Christ appeared to me, I spent a lot of years in immense seriousness, like looking like
Hmm.
why did this
Hmm.
happen to me? And what, like what is this? And I think I took on like a stoic like nature and became
Hmm.
transpersonal. And because I was aware of this higher perception of reality that it was hard to relate to other people. But
Hmm.
in the
Yeah.
years, especially in being guided to Indigenous wellness and running so many workshops, being around so many seniors, I remember one time I made the mistake of, it was primarily Gokums, like grandmothers in this circle. There was a few men,
Mm.
but I had this one dad joke, and I don't carry a lot of prescribed jokes. I like making people laugh spontaneously more than anything. But I had this one dad joke that I was carrying in my pocket, and it's, what kind of bees give us milk? And everyone looked at me like, I don't know. And then I admitted, well, it's boobies. And that group of grandmothers never let me forget that joke, right? Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, that's dancing with that's where playful, playing with the profound comes from. It's that dance of what's sacred, what's profane. And when you honor what's sacred, right? And then honor what's profane, that's what opens up beyond that duality. And then you can play with that edge. And that's where stand-up comedy lives, right?
Yeah.
That's where creativity comes from. So certainly it takes courage to tell a joke around a circle of serious elders anyway. But did they laugh, Nathaniel? Did they
Absolutely.
laugh?
And they
Oh,
never
amazing.
never let me forget it too. Yeah. It was a totally, it's when I first
Uh,
started that job, like the talk about the seriousness, because I'm like, wow, I have like 25 to 40 active seniors and like uh all coming from different cultural backgrounds, different levels of experience. We had some seniors who were, residential school survivors. We had some
well,
who had dementia. We had some who were blind, some who were deaf. We had, a whole plethora of people, diabetic, like mobility issues. And I'm like, how am I going to come in and like take care of this group of seniors, go on field trips and all this? And I remember, I'll tell this funny story to kind of give you context. So
mhm, mhm,
I started in August. No, I started in July, and then in end of August, a group of children, they had a summer camp. They went to a YMCA camp, and they invited our group of seniors to come and join them for I think it was the second last day. They had a ceremony and stuff.
Yeah.
And I said, okay. So I booked a school bus. I had to learn all the logistics of this. I wore so many hats in this role, but I booked it all. I organized, a paratranspo for people with wheelchairs. I was nervous. I went to talk to the HR director. She's like, make sure everyone signs waivers. It's uneven terrain. They can trip and fall. And
Oh,
so I'm like, I'm going there. And I remember I wasn't even feeling great going there that day. I probably was way too much in my head. And so we finally get out there. We get to the campground. I get everyone off the bus. I'm helping everyone get all around the fire. And then this
oh.
one senior, Louise, who's a Cree grandmother, she just gets up and beelines it right for the forest. And I'm like, oh my goodness, so I just got everyone down, and she's going right for the woods, right? She's going on a walk, which is just decides. And so I tracking her through the woods, and she's moving fast, right? And I finally catch up to her. I'm like, Louise, I know you grew up in the trap line, like you know, you know your way around the woods, but can we please just go back to the fire? I'm like, I need to keep everyone together, like it's my first field trip. Can you please do this for me? So she's like, she, acquiesced. We come around the corner, and another senior is up in the trees with her shoes off. She's in the tree. She's posing like Marilyn Monroe on the tree. And then the senior who's deaf, he's taking photos. He always had a camera around. He was taking photos of her. And I'm like, what are you doing? I went up to the tree and I got her down and I said, what are you doing to me here? And everyone's laughing. And then there's a lineup of seniors all wanting to go up the tree to get their photo. We were there for like 5 minutes, not even. Anyways, some of them like to call themselves seniors gone wild, and they christened me on that day. They
Nice.
said they were christening me, and it's so funny because the camp counselor who came after, who was there the whole 2 weeks with the youth, he said, you know what, Nathaniel, he said, we've had the youth here all this whole time, and not one of them has even tried to climb that tree or any trees.
Mm,
And he says, you bring the seniors here in 5 minutes, they're climbing trees.
right. Totally. Totally.
Yeah.
Senior, I mean, we talked about children and that inner child, but I think we all got this inner senior in us too, where it's the one who has lived and has experiences and then doesn't take things quite as seriously sometimes, right? Like I've
Yeah.
also worked with a lot of seniors, and I lived with my grandma. It's her birthday today, December 3rd.
Oh, happy
I believe
birthday, Grandma.
I think she's 94. Holy smokes. I lived with her for a couple of years when she was in her 90s, and we had so much fun. So much fun. And she, kind of, everybody's got these hardwired neural pathways by that point, and perhaps a little bit less neuroplasticity and some stubbornness after 90 years of doing something the same way. And so I honored that. It wasn't about trying to fix, change, heal, but I was willing to listen and I was willing to play with her. And I didn't take her problems as much as I listened with a whole heart. I didn't take her problems quite as seriously as she did, so I could infuse a little bit of humor into it, and that created some spaciousness for her to actually work through some challenges
Mm.
that had been bothering her for a long time. And I love working with people, older people, and whether they're older or close to death or dying or thinking about the end of life, right? Like these are profound conversations, and they can lead to existential crisis, but they can also, as a result of that, lead to a sense of real peace and clarity. And that play comes back as the result of that because, well, here we are, and there's a tree to climb. I'm in, you know? Yeah.
Totally, totally.
I
Yeah, no,
love
I
that.
love that, man. And and
Yeah.
and 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 your grandmother's really blessed to have a grandson who will listen to her on that level of depth. I think, this leads me to, your awareness games. I would imagine, having not been there to experience it myself, it must you're creating memories and moments, and that was a big part of what I saw my role in doing the coordination for programs like that. You're
Mm.
creating bonding and deepening relationships because you're doing it through experiences with people. What does that do to the level of presence in the community as a whole? Because I'm sure you see these people in passing as you're in Nelson. And for anyone who hasn't heard of Nelson, it's a very colorful place, very unique town, most unique town I've ever been in. So I'd love for you to talk
Absolutely.
about that.
Well, let's just set a touch of context. There's like the Nelson dynamic. There's the Nelson effect. It is this strange little wormhole of reality where, there's only 11,000 people in the town, I think 60,000 in the region. So every day when you go into town, you will see people that at least you recognize their face, if don't know their names. And this happens every day, which is an interesting level of accountability, for example, right? Like I'm a coach, so I work with clients one-on-one. I also am working as a disability support worker. So I've got a couple clients that I work with there, and that's more of a traditional employment. And then I'm out in the community facilitating or participating in community conversations, groups of people that want to collaborate. And you know what happens when people want to collaborate and form community is all of the stuff that gets in the way of them dealing with connection, with love and connection, comes to the surface. So community building is an emotional exploration and release as well. But I'm working in disability support on, Wednesday, and then on Thursday I show up to community conversation, and what do you know? My boss is there, and I didn't know she was going to be there, and I've just started this job 4 weeks ago. So there's this interesting like almost, oh, who am I to her? But I realized, no, and we actually talked about it. It's like, I just show up and I'm kind of the same everywhere that I go.
Mm.
And it's a lot easier than putting on masks or thinking of today I'm a coach. Today I'm
Mhm.
and those things happen, but those roles don't define me. And there is that kind of core of who I am that just shows up. I just show up. So if we're going to have a conversation about community, amazing. If we're going to do some coaching, amazing, right? Um, and so what that has led to is meeting people and connecting very quickly, which means that they then integrate me into their social networks. And so suddenly I'm quite involved in the community, right? And if I'm going to put down roots, I want to also put out branches, right? Like I want to be with people and collaborate. And so I've taken on, if somebody comes to me and say, "Hey, I'm having this challenge," I will do what I can to help that. And sometimes I think I'm offering an hour, of free service, and it turns into months of coaching. And I just do that. And um, there's an energetic resonance that happens due to that, I guess, that momentum, right? Of just, I choose to show up, I choose to show up, I choose to show up. Like I've worked out of the last 33 days, I've worked 30 of them.
Mm.
And before that, for most of those 4 years, I wasn't working, right? And so there's this big shift of like, now I'm planted and I'm grounded and I'm reaching out and I'm connecting and I'm collaborating and I'm employed and all of these kinds of things. And to do that in Nelson is a real treat because it's full of people who have the capacity to listen, who have the capacity to have eye contact, right? And then they come in for hugs, and there's this real warmth about them and honesty because everybody's just showing up as they are. And there's still the full spectrum. It's not like everybody here is a spiritual hippie, right? We've got all sorts of people, and yet there is this baseline acceptance that we would rather keep our hearts open and then connect with the world and then
Mm.
see what comes of that.
Mm.
So yeah, Nelson's a beautiful place. I'm certainly finding my way in it, and the games themselves definitely led to, again, like you just meet people and you connect so quickly. It's like being on retreat. Um, and also at the same time, I think I'm finding a hesitation in my answer for this because whoever somebody is within the awareness games is who they are within the awareness games for that moment,
Mm.
right? I mean, I can know them and know them quickly, but if I don't see them for a month, I'm not usually showing up with "how are you?" It's "who are you?" Who do you understand yourself to be now,
Mm.
as you are in this moment? And let me meet that person, right? It's that attend to the gift kind of thing.
Yeah.
So if somebody's super familiar to me or if somebody's a stranger to me, I still just want to show up with an open heart and then see what comes of that.
That's really beautiful. I love that, who are you instead of how are you? I feel like that's a very expansive way of approaching anyone because the other the other way, I mean, even though it is an open invitation to conversation, it's been so normalized, just like we normalize the miraculous in life. When you ask someone how they are, the socially accepted norm is I'm good, or like even if you
Good. I
say
know.
I'm not so great, that kind of, it's like, oh really, are we going there? For a lot of people in passing, so I love that. Who are you? And if that's in your heart, you're meeting people with the gift that they're bringing in that moment. Because like I think for anyone who's on the awakening journey, at least this has been my experience, is that we go through these chapters. I like to think of them like spices, like these
Mm,
these phases of life where I was a very different expression of my individuation of self, like, and it had to do a lot with the meanings that I was giving things, the meanings I was giving myself, my current level of consciousness and comprehension. But also I feel like I was just in a different multi-dimensional space within myself. And I don't think that's true for everyone. I've met a lot of, people who they maintain a very consistent identity throughout their
mm.
life. And there are some that just go through these iterations of themselves as they peel more and more layers. And I think get to that core that you're talking about, because that core is there, I think has always been there for me. But there's these deeper layers of myself that have allowed me, as I feel them, to be more playful, to be more, you know, gregarious in my laughter.
Yeah, I think that brings up one really important thing that deserves to be said, is that when I talk about, play, and then we talk about getting into the deepest, darkest, most painful things, that sounds like a panic attack for a lot of people. And that's true. It's like play in and of itself is actually quite scary for a lot of adults, more than children. But even as a child, I was kind of scared to have fun because it leads to more kind of individuation, which can lead to more judgment from other people. And the more fun you're having, that can trigger other people who are actually, feeling jealousy or insecurity about their ability to play. Oh, I wouldn't be like that. And then it's almost easier to not play, to take everything really seriously and continue to believe that there's a problem that needs to be solved.
Mm.
And then you can bond with people. But if we can say there is both a problem that needs to be solved and there is no problem at all, and sit there with that paradox, right? That opens up a space where I can play and it can be scary, and I choose to bring my whole self to this moment. And in a loving environment, that is such an accelerant for growth.
Mm.
Yeah.
So well articulated, man. That's really
Yeah.
beautiful. I really do look forward to seeing how the awareness games expands and evolves to meet people. Do you have any like inklings of how you see that coming into being? I'm sure people listening to this like, how do I play
Yeah.
these awareness
How do I
games?
play? How do I play? Well, fair enough. So the first thing that I would do is I want things to be simple, Nathaniel. The world's full of complexity, and like I've kind of stated about love, truth, peace, power, these and play, and these are very simple concepts. So I built a website, theawarenessgames.com. People can click on a link there to join. There's a waiting list for the online version, and it's just going to be a dialectic loop of here's game number one, and then people go out into the world, play the game, and then they they bring the feedback, right? And then they say here's what happened, and then they'll go through game two. And these games, I mean, it's as simple as awareness of breath, but maybe you're going to make it more playful than just saying you should breathe deeper. There's better ways, Nathaniel. So it's instead saying, okay, let's every time we hit a red lights are now code for 3 deep breaths, right? Because I dealt with a lot of impatience and I hated red lights. And so you end up, driving too fast and all these things. So it's like, okay, if we can recode red lights as an opportunity for breath, or even better or different, would be when you walk through a door from one room to another, breathe, right? Like every doorway is a doorway into peace. I think that one of the challenges around peace is we think that it's like a destination. It's like I'm
Mm.
aiming towards inner peace. The end of my awakening journey is peace. Yeah, maybe, but also if you are at peace and then you take a step forward, what's the destination,
Mm.
right? So I'm interested in peace as not the final step,
Mhm.
but the first step.
Yeah.
And that means breath. So the first couple awareness games, if people sign up to awarenessgames.com, they'll see that this is primarily about simple things like breath, but it's making it playful. And then that creates, peace basically creates the canvas upon which we can paint the rest of our reality. So as peace is at the foundation, it's the starting point, not the final end. Yeah.
That's beautiful, man. I mean, you, in so many ways, you really do remind me of my other brother because he said the same thing from a different kind of teacher, right? He said, seek the kingdom of heaven. And what is the kingdom of heaven? Seek first that state of unconditional love. So it's just another, facet of peace you're talking about. And I feel like there's so much power, and the mind can so quickly want to brush that aside. Okay, yeah, peace, sure, but it's that a game of hide and seek like you're talking about, right? So for folks, and we actually just did a workshop about this of somatic realignment in school today. We had a wonderful woman named Mirtha who taught about this, and it's interesting how this is also like nervous system regulation is coming up here. For people who are maybe more identified within the headspace and where the mind just, okay, I'm at the light, okay, 3D press, and they are in more of that performative kind of aspect of reality.
Mm.
How do you bridge someone to get even more deep, or where would you go with this for them?
Yeah, you got to start where you're at, right? Like this, it's to take a breath, to say, hey, take a deep breath. And it can be quite like condescending, and it can be very activating to tell somebody, hey, you need to take a deep breath. And I'm guilty of that too. But it's not necessarily the depth of the breath, it's the choice of the breath. So if you're choosing to breathe and you can only get your lungs so open and you feel all of that constriction, that's okay too. So simply being with that constriction, right? Like in Vipassana, those are the Buddha's teachings. You're not trying to change the sensation. You're not trying to fix your breath. You're not trying to solve the world's problems. You're simply being. And so it's the return to that being state instead of that fixing, that doing, that having. We're just being. And so if all that's happening when you're at a red light is you're sitting there saying, damn it, I wish this light was green. Oh, I'm running really late. I wish my coffee was hot. Fine. But then report back, because that's the completion of the neural loop. It's like, hey, I took my 3 breaths and it turned into me laughing at how frustrated and impatient I am. Name it, right? Like name what's in your field, name what's in your awareness. So this is where the emotional awareness and the nervous system regulation comes in, where first, just breathe. Just do it. Just do it because it's the best thing that you can possibly do for your whole awareness, for your whole consciousness, for your physiology, for your nervous system. Your body heals itself when you breathe in a regulated way. 5 seconds in, 5 seconds out. When my breathwork teacher taught me that, I said, okay, sorry, how long do I do that for? For the rest of your life. Whoa! For the rest of your life. And of course, like then you're saying, but I have anger, but I've got fear, I've got this reactivity, I got these old wounds and these traumas. This is where the emotional processing comes in. So now we're breathing and we're naming emotions. Now we're sitting with that overthinking, that in your head, that anxiety, whatever that impatience is that you're mentioning, and you're saying, impatience. Are you trying to fix the impatience? No. Are you trying to get rid of it? No. Are you trying to breathe life into it? No. Let all of that go. Simple impatience. That's enough, because what you're actually doing is you're regulating yourself to feel the emotion that you don't want to feel, which is you choosing to not resist what is within you, which allows it to flow through. Because if you resist, it persists, right? Some of these old rhymes, right? These coaching rhymes that are out there, you got to heal it to feel it. If you ain't crying, you dying. Some of them are true. What resists, what you resist persists. So if we don't want to feel anger, then we will do everything we can to seek peace. And yet the path to peace, if we're treating it as a destination, requires us to feel and release all of the anger.
Yeah.
So instead, if we can make peace with the full spectrum of our emotions, then you're saying it's okay to be angry. It's
Mhm.
okay to feel impatience. Ah, and can I stay regulated while feeling that feeling? So I'm creating safety in my nervous system
Mhm.
to
Mhm.
feel an emotion of
Yeah.
anger, especially anger because we're people are afraid when we're angry and they then don't
Mhm.
want us to be angry and we
Mhm.
don't like when they're angry and anger.
And they don't want to be
So
afraid.
and they don't want to be afraid, right? So what if we said, I'm feeling anger, right? Somebody jumps back, oh no, I'm feeling fear. Ah, oh, what's that all about? That's reactivity coming back from our field. But when we own our anger, when we own our impatience, when we own our fear, when we own our judgments, when we say, I'm feeling these things, and we regulate our nervous system, we create safety, it actually passes through us far more efficiently
Mhm.
without any of the inner and external damage.
Yeah.
And then suddenly we realize that every emotion that we were resisting carries within it wisdom or codes or awareness that allows us to feel that deeper sense of wholeness. So when we honor the full spectrum of our human emotions and regulate our nervous systems to allow for those, and then process them, speak them, release them, write them, create art from them, dance from them, cry, whatever it is, this allows us to actually feel into that wholeness. And that's not a lifetime journey. I mean, you can do it for a
Mhm.
lifetime, but that's like an hour. You
Mhm.
know, that's like an hour and a half,
Yeah.
maybe once a week. And when we do that and we return to that baseline of peace, right? Peace as a baseline. Wow. And then we make choices in the world and then we act and then we bring in our focus and we create something. There's so much more power that comes from that.
You know what? You want to know what my brain did when you were talking about like letting those emotions pass? Like in
Yeah.
my brain, I saw taking an eraser to IBS and just taking the ends and making, I think I would have been a brilliant marketer. Like it's a whole syndrome, irritable emotional syndrome, and
You're,
you just cured it. You cured it by
yes, I think
you,
that's the paradox is to be at peace with the full spectrum
yeah.
of the experience, right? Like suffering for most people is a painful emotion, right?
Mhm.
So if somebody says, I'm feeling guilt, they say, I'm suffering. Only if you're resisting feeling the
Yes.
guilt, which
Yes.
is the projection that
Yeah.
we have when we say we're suffering, is I'm separate from that and I don't
Right.
like it and I don't
Right.
want it. So if we make peace with
Hmm.
guilt,
Hmm.
you're still going to feel it, but you're going to release it. And then you're actually going to find that when people give you a guilt trip, it doesn't land anymore. And
Yeah.
you just see, projection of guilt. I
Yeah.
understand and I'm here for that. But now it's from a place of love and peace. And to the extent that I have capacity, I can, but do not have to choose to support them through that process of
Mhm.
coming back to peace themselves.
Well, I think it's really beautiful too. Like you described games to me, like there's a clear juxtaposition of finite games, which we tend to talk about and play in our society, whether it's sports or board games or whatever. And those can be pastimes and like be, things that help us, maybe distract us from feeling some of these things. And then there's the infinite games that we play.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like the awareness games is an infinite game and it allows for cooperation and collaboration much more than any of these finite games of like winners and losers. This is more of like an expanse. It's a journey, and I really feel like it's really important. There's so much of what you said, Shua, that we could go into a whole lot of depth here, and I feel like this is an ongoing conversation that we're always going to have. I feel like every time we touch base. I'm really curious. Like I know you're. I want to say this from a from an attuned place. I love how you describe like you're just a guy in Nelson doing this beautiful work, and you're not coming from a place of mission or trying to fix, is what I'm hearing. You're coming from a place of pure beingness, which I really do feel. It's like that song, "What the world needs now is love, sweet love.
Mm-hmm.
It's the only thing that there's just too little of." And it looks like it might have froze a little bit during that, but you get the point.
I heard you loud and clear.
Okay, beautiful. I I love asking guests this
Mm.
question, who really I feel like have this vision. Maybe is a better way to put forth to you. If you had a way of talking to the whole world like through a megaphone, or just going into that stillness and just, reaching those branches out that you talked about, and you could just talk and touch everyone in the world at the same time, what would you communicate to them?
I just give them a hug.
Love that,
Just
brother.
give them a hug. Yeah, unless they didn't want one, in which case maybe a high five,
High fives, yeah.
maybe a thumb war. Um, I remember one time I was at a party and I just felt so alive and connected to everybody, and each in their own way, and there's like 60 people at the house party, and I kind of learned them all by name. It was a bit of a flow state. And with one guy I'm talking about abstract philosophy, and another guy says, "Hey, do you want to go wrestle on the lawn?" I said, "Great." And he was a big, like 200-pound dude, and I was skin and bones. And I just loved the ability to be able to connect with anybody where they were at without
Mm,
needing them to like what I like or believe what I believe. So I wouldn't have a lot of words for everybody because I don't think words connect with everybody.
mm,
And there's no one thing that I would say um, that would create the sense of connection that perhaps I might have been looking for by reaching out to all 8 billion people on the planet. But it would be if I could look into people's eyes, if I could give them a hug, if I could, if they said, "Hey, here's the challenge I'm having, you know, what do you think?" And we can talk through it. Um, but I'll answer your question in a very embodied way right now. The place that I feel the most alive, free, whole, contributive, in connection, playful is when I go to old folks' homes and I play piano. And
mm.
most old folks' homes have a piano. And when I moved to Nelson, I was living in a fifth wheel, and I didn't have space for a piano, and I didn't have the cash for a piano. And I thought, I don't have a piano. That's interesting. I don't have. Well, there's lots of pianos in the world, and I don't need to own the piano. And so I found a piano in a flower shop, which led to finding pianos in old folks' homes. And so when I show up, as I do very regularly, I'll walk in, and just this last Sunday, I walked in and I said, "I'm going to play some piano." And one of them turned to me and said, "Oh, it must be Sunday," because I show up every Sunday. And I sit down and I play, and it's music, and it's my hands hitting keys, and it's making music. It's not words, and it's not really me, right? But they sit there and they're just blissed out, and they'll pay me compliments and encouragement, and they'll clap, and they'll sit there and they'll cry, and they'll tell stories about the music that they play and whatever, right? Like it's that whole thing. But what I'm doing is I'm just playing music on the piano, and how they interpret that beauty and what that means to them and who comes and who goes, that's not something that I want to control. So I find that, yeah, words have their place. If I were to connect with everybody, increasingly I find that I am most in connection with people when I'm not busy trying to articulate the truths of the universe or preaching about how people should live, or that stuff's great, and I love it when there's a receptive audience, because then it's worth an incredible, it can save so much suffering. But on a day-to-day level, if I'm not going around, preaching and teaching, then I'd rather be playing piano, and
Mm.
I'd rather be making music and creating a sense of peace and connection, and that's enough. That's enough.
That's
Yeah.
so beautiful, brother. I really, you
Yeah.
know what? I feel like that's the cherry on top of our conversation. I feel like there's so much room for wonder, and I feel like you've caused a great level of reflection for myself, and I'm sure the listeners as well who are listening to and reflecting on their own life, and what is that one thing, what's their piano, what's their
Mm.
connection to community. I know we all have that, and you really have a profound gift of articulating and bringing things together, Shua. So thanks, man, for being such a beautiful presence in our world. And we so look forward to seeing you and Britt again, and for you to meet Luciana in person. And we are
Yes.
really, really looking forward to those wonderful hugs that you give, because
Uh,
you are a top hug giver and receiver too. Yeah, you're just such a wonderful, wonderful man, wonderful heart, wonderful being. So thanks so much, man. I really appreciate the time that we've had together. And
Thank
yeah,
you. I
yeah,
appreciate this podcast. I appreciate the intention and the vision, lighthearted vision that you have behind it, and you're doing it. You're making it. This has been an idea for some time, and I really feel your energy of stepping into it and creating a community of communities and sharing your light, right? And showing other people their light. And it's such a gift that you have. So yeah, keep going.
thanks,
Keep going.
brother.
I'm
Yeah,
cheering you on. Absolutely. And
yeah. What? Go
I
ahead.
just wanted to share just one other thing is that these are nice things to talk about, right? Like light and love and truth and peace. And I also wrote down here all vibes welcome because I really do believe that um, I still have days where I'm frustrated and angry and feeling depressed and anxious, and like I still experience that full spectrum. So it's not just about feeling love all the time.
Mm,
And community has to allow for a wide spectrum of people in it. And everybody's fluctuating within that. Nobody's one thing all the time. And so, as we build community, I would encourage us to explore what it means to create space for all vibes, right? Not just good vibes, because that's a judgment and it's a subjective judgment within duality. But can we create a community where, like, come as you are, be as you are, yeah, and that just feels important to say that I still experience the full spectrum of everything, and there's an underlying sense of peace that allows me to say I choose this journey, I choose who to be as I am, and I choose to allow the world to be as it is, and then whatever we create is from a place of collaboration and play rather than persuasion and work.
I think there's so much value there, Shua, and it reminds me of a lot of things. When we set out on our quest out west, not knowing who we would meet, but just having this question of what is conscious community and how can we help build bridges and contribute to conscious communities wherever we go. And we're still doing that. Like we see that one of the challenges in the modern time, especially with the digital world, is everyone's trying to create their own ecosystem, of
Yeah.
community, whether it's the Tony Robbins or the Joe Dispenzas or the Dr. Sue Mortars or, everyone's trying to get, okay, who's my people? Where's my people? And it does create kind of a silo effect of exclusion based on vibration, in some of these places, like, like no negativity. And well, what about these parts of ourselves that there might be a immensely brilliant gem of
Mm,
the soulful self that is hidden in a layer that has been wounded
hmm.
behind a mask of negativity, and until it is embraced and allowed to shine for what it is. So I think if we are truly one, either we are one or we are not one. I mean, we have the paradoxical
Ah,
experience, but either we are one or we not are not one. I mean, there is a truth there, right?
yeah.
And so when we exclude aspects of ourselves or aspects of ourselves that look like community members, then we are creating a nut where we're just feeding more into that that polarization that we talked about. So it's a beautiful full circle. And I will add, because in so many ways you have reminded me of what Yeshua talks about in his letters. Known as
Mm,
Jesus, he too experienced the same fullness, the same spectrum of even after full enlightenment in the desert. He talks about how he still had to deal with the egoic drive. He still had to deal with lower thought forms, and he encourages us to not dwell there when they arise, to embrace them. And I feel like it's what you said, it's in not resisting, in being fully present with these states, that we can return to that baseline of peace. Imagine a world where all the nervous systems on our world had a baseline of peace, and yeah, we can dip below it and we can soar above it, but here we are holding this resonant field for Mother Earth, because I feel like one of the bigger conversations, we tend to be so human centric as a species, but Mother Earth as a
mhm.
self, she's a symbiotic being. She's a living form. And then there's all of our other brothers and sisters, whether it's the winged ones or the crawlers or the four-legged ones, the swimmers, even the rock people, like our buildings, are reflections of our resonant vibration. So if we can take a step toward that baseline of peace that you describe. And you've so beautifully articulated a pathway to peace here and just in a conversation. So, um, yeah, so much appreciation. How we will put it in our show notes. I believe it's already there, Julia, thing. But what's the best way for people to connect with you, Shua?
Yeah, absolutely. So my website is innerempire.fun.
That's great, man. That's great.
innerempire.fun. So anybody can reach me through there. You can also check out theawarenessgames.com. And though I don't use social media, I've got an account at shua.wanders. And hit me up with questions, hit me up with challenges, hit me up with complexity, hit me up with stories of what you're seeking. And I'll read everything and I'll answer everything. It's my absolute joy to do so. So yeah,
So
thank you.
beautiful. And you're
Yeah.
certainly welcome. You know what I love about a school as a whole, as a platform, man, is it's all about authentic engagement and community. There's no ads on it. It's really a place where I have such deep, soulful conversations with folks, and people are finding one another based on their resonant interests instead of like joining this group or another thing. So if you do join us there, then that would be wonderful too. I think you'd find a lot of beautiful connections in that space. And for those listening too, please do know that you're welcome. All vibes. I think you've inspired me to do a post about that. All vibes welcome in our space. It's been such a beautiful, reflective. I knew it would be. I knew it would be a truly heart centric and expansive conversations with you, Shua, as it always is. And yeah, just keep shining, man. Keep going. You're doing. You're being an amazing light in the world, and really grateful for you, brother.
Thank you. I'm grateful for you too. Thanks for the curiosity to engage with my own story and ramblings. It's a pleasure to always share space with you and swap ideas. And I know there's more to come. And this has been not just one cherry on top, but I think a bowl full of cherries. So thanks for enjoying it with me.
Yeah, man. Beautiful.
Yeah.
Well, I think the only thing left is to invite Luciana to wish us all a farewell and thanks for watching. So I'm just going to invite her up to the screen here. Thanks for watching.
Button.
You say ciao, ciao.
Bye.
I love you so much.